Okay, this video is more quotes from the book Holy Grail of Wisdom, quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're starting with Nathaniel Branden. He's a famous psychologist. He was very close friends with Ayn Rand. As a matter of fact, they were lovers for a while. He has a few good things to say. He basically says, self-esteem is the reputation we acquire with ourselves. He wrote an entire book about how to raise your self-esteem. The other guy who's interesting with that is Thomas Shaz. He's like, self-esteem is the energy a person runs on, and they have to maintain that in order to have the energy to get through a lot of challenges in life. Creativity requires leisure. Yeah, you need time. I'm a perfect example of that. I got all kinds of creative ideas, but I don't have enough time to, do them all, If I was a free man, last year I wrote 5 books. If I was a free man, I would have wrote 7. I got a lot of good ideas. I just don't have time. Okay, here's another great quote by Nathaniel Branden. Anyone who really loves you wants you to be authentic. And anyone who doesn't want you to be authentic doesn't really love you. I would say that's partly true. Somebody who won't let you be yourself. What I've experienced is I have family members. They'll let me be myself when I talk to them. But whenever we're like out in public, they're like, Dad, shut up. You're autistic. Dad, shut up. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I think I'm just old. What I mean by that is I remember I would go places with my mother when I was a kid. And my mom would say all the funniest things. She would just say whatever she was really thinking. She would joke with the waiter, the waitress, and say like personal things, but were funny. They were nice. So anyways, I'm a little bit like that, and my kids can't take it. They're like, Dad, don't talk. Why do you talk? Why do you talk to people? These are strangers, Dad. Why do you talk? And I'm like, I'm just joking around, okay? Old people are bored, okay? We joke a little. It's not a big deal. All right, but he has a point. Somebody who won't let you be yourself, they don't really like you. When it's in that context, even when you're alone with them. The first step towards change is awareness. Yeah, you got to be aware of your mistake before you can fix it. Okay, Nathaniel Branden. One of the most important moments in healing is when the client grasps that no one is coming, to save them. No one is coming to make life right for them. No one is coming to solve their problems. And if they don't do something, nothing is going to get better. And it's kind of the same thing with nutrition. Basically, the person has to realize for the common chronic diseases that almost all the patients have the same stuff. They're fat, pre-diabetic, diabetic, fatty liver, hypertensive, coronary artery disease, cerebral vascular disease, impotent, poor dentition, cataract, blah, 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 gastroesophageal reflux. It goes on and on, the same crap all day long. Okay, nobody's going to help them. There's dietary diseases. They have to help themselves. They have to learn. Once they realize the pills aren't going to fix them, then they've got a chance to improve. Okay, next is Peter Braggin. He's a real famous psychiatrist. Here's his quote, ADHD was invented as a way to describe disruptive classroom behavior as a disease. Yeah, what's ADHD? Anything that annoys a teacher. There is no biologic basis for any psychiatric disease, I shouldn't say for any, for psychiatric disease in general. He means for depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. Yeah, that's a good point. He said, all drugs that impact the mind work by partially disabling the brain and the mind. Yeah, what he basically said is that all psychiatric drugs cause a slow chemical lobotomy, sometimes fast. Okay, suicide risk is doubled when children take antidepressants instead of sugar pills. That's a big statement. He doesn't use any psychiatric drugs except for when he's weaning a patient so they don't get withdrawal symptoms. Suicide risk is doubled when children take antidepressants instead of sugar pills. Depression is an understandable human despair that is frequently responsive to psychosocial help. It's also a lot of times due to food and toxins. Okay, he continues. Children with disruptive classroom behavior are routinely placed on stimulants like Ritalin, like amphetamines. Stimulant medications like Ritalin have lots of side effects, and the patient often ends up on multiple medications by the time they're age 10 years old. Yeah, they turn these poor little kids into psych patients, polypharmacy. And then he continues. I usually can take the pediatric patients off all psychiatric medications. Okay, he continues. Modern medicine is a religion. Just ask enough times why. Just ask why enough times. And by the way, this is Robert Mendelsohn. This is not Braggin anymore. Just ask, from his book, Confessions of a Heretic. Just ask why enough times, and sooner or later you'll reach a chasm of faith. The reason doctors are so dangerous is because they believe in what they are doing. If you eliminated all unnecessary surgery, most surgeons would go out of business. In prepaid practices, hysterectomies and tonsillectomies only occur about 1/3 as often as in fee-for-service patients practices. So he's basically saying is if they're making profit off it, they're going to do a lot more cases. Okay, next one is Gerald Brennan. He says, those who have some means will tell you that the most important thing in the world is love. Those who are poor know that it is money. Yeah, that reminds me of Scarlett O'Hara when she almost starved for a while and her family out in Tara, the farm. She became very, very, very money-minded. She was money-minded already, but more so then. Okay, Gerald Brennan. You can't get at the truth by writing history. Only the novelist can do that. Yeah, that's what I kind of learned myself because I read tons and tons of history, but it's just so much better when you get it from the historical, like the novelist point of view, what the characters were thinking and feeling and how the events around them impacted upon them. Then you could really feel it. Then you remember it. I'll never forget the Civil War after having read Gone with the Wind. That was 100 times better than all the other books I read, all the other classrooms I had about it. That made me feel the whole thing. Okay, next is Niall Brennan. He wrote a great book called The Making of a Moron about how society turns people into morons by pressuring them to do stupid conformist stuff. It's a good book. Okay. Here we go with Niall Brennan's quotes. There was an experiment in which a number of mentally defective people were drafted into industry and proved themselves not only more easily disciplined and more content with their mechanized tasks, but on the whole more efficient than the normal men and women who they had replaced. I would believe that if it was an easy task, because sometimes for a smart person, it's very difficult to do something that they think is tedious and stupid and meaningless. But if you get a person who that's a bit of a challenge, they might find it enjoyable. Okay, he continues. To be a good man and a good salesman is not easy, but I knew one who succeeded. If there was some rubbish left on the counters, he told the customers it was rubbish. If he could not supply what they wanted, he told and knew a store that could, he told them about that too. The management was outraged. They allowed him to stay only under the closest supervision. At the end of the first year, his sales record was equal to that of the other salesmen. By the second, it was better. And at the end of this writing, the time of this writing, he has the biggest sales sheet in the score. The management now treasure him, and the reason for his success is clear. He can be trusted, and he has built up a personal following. He who was the world's worst salesman by sales theory actually sells more goods and helps more people and builds up more goodwill that is converted to customers than all the experts. Yeah, so, sometimes it does work out. That good wins out and, the truth pays off. And I wish it was more often like that. Okay, that's it for today.